Hello and welcome to Upfront on the Voice of America. I'm Jackson Vunganyi. Thank you so much for joining us today. In recent years, a growing movement has emerged in the US and other parts of the developed world, passionately campaigning against life without parole sentences for children in the criminal justice system. This advocacy seeks to bring attention to the unique vulnerabilities and potential for rehabilitation among young offenders. It also challenges the notion that a lifetime behind bars is the only solution to address their actions. The campaign against life without parole for children is rooted in the belief that people change and grow, especially in their formative years of adolescence. Advocates make the argument that subjecting juveniles to life sentences without the possibility of parole fails to acknowledge the evolving nature of their cognitive, emotional, and moral development. My guest, Eddie Ellis, spent a number of years in prison, and since his release over 15 years ago, he has become a writer, a motivational speaker, and activist for criminal justice reform. Eddie says that he hopes to use his memoir, Change is Possible, I Never Gave Up, to inspire others to survive and strive outside of prison. Eddie, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Good to see you, my brother. So let's get a little bit into the background first of all, we'll talk about your book, but let me ask you, as a person that grew up here in Washington, D.C. area, how did you end up in jail at a young age, and what decisions or actions did you make that brought you to that, took you to jail?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, environmental things, affects children. When I was a young person, my first person I saw die, I didn't see him actually be shot, but I saw him being carried on the gurney. Was my 10-year-old friend. The next year, my best friend's grandmother was shot in front of me, and she lost her life. Emotionally, that affected me in so many ways, but as a child, my father was also killed when I was 1 year old.
There was a lot of death around you.
Right. And it really affected me in ways that I didn't know. My mother took me to see a therapist to try to get help. And I really didn't talk to the therapist the way I should have because I didn't have the vocabulary or understanding of what a therapist was at that time. But in my situation, I started hanging around the wrong people. But my dream was to play professional football, basketball. That's all I wanted to do. Because the athletes that I looked up to were people who gave back to the community.
They were role models.
They were role models. Yeah. And I wanted to be those people. But I started hanging around the wrong people and started doing wrong things. And at the age of 15, me and 3 other people were actually arrested for armed robbery that we didn't commit. And this was my first time being involved in the criminal justice system as a 15-year-old. And we stayed down Oak Hill, which is a juvenile facility in Laurel, Maryland, for a few months, and we were released. But being there, I dealt with a lot of frustration, I dealt with a lot of anger, depression, my first time experiencing solitary confinement in my life, but I'm a child. And when I was released, now I was kicked out of school because I was held in prison in that juvenile detention center too long. And I started surrounding myself more and more with wrong people, and then I was arrested for murder in 1991 at the age of 16. And someone lost their life, and I, take full responsibility for what took place that day. But he had a gun, and I had a gun, and unfortunately, he lost his life that day, and it changed my life from that day forward.
So you went to jail, prison. Can you explain to us the difference between prison and jail?
Well, jail is a place where you're going to be housed while you're facing court and going through the procedures of court. In prison, for those who've been committed, found guilty, and you're going to finish your time or do your time. I went to D.C. jail in 1991 at 16. Was found guilty at 1992 when I was 17. 1993, I went to Lorton when Lorton was still open, and I stayed in Lorton from 1993.
That's a prison.
It's a prison.
Yeah.
It was D.C. prison at the time before it was fully closed. And 93 to 97, 1997, I went to Youngstown, Ohio, where DC Systems sold us to privatize prisons.
Wow. That's what we hear about the prison industrial system or complex whatever.
Yes.
So what was prison like for you as a 16-year-old?
It was horrible.
How do you process that?
It was horrible. It was horrible. I was a mama's boy. You know, the environments were crazy, were dangerous at times, very frightening at times. And but also I've found environments, and as I got older, that were more, I'm not gonna say comfortable, but it was comfortable. Where people were in law libraries, people were in school, people were doing things to better themselves, which a lot of times the public don't get a chance to see. But as many, and I'm speaking about men because I wasn't in a prison with women, but I'm pretty sure they do the same thing. There's a lot of men who are doing awesome things to better themselves and to help other people better themselves while they were in these conditions. But it was dangerous. Prisons are dangerous.
Right. And how did you, in prison, you ended up in solitary confinement at some point?
Yes.
How do you end up in solitary confinement?
It's many ways you can end up in solitary confinement. You find people who have mental health issues that end up in solitary confinement because the jails can't, you know, quote unquote, deal with them. You have people who may get in trouble for certain things that place in solitary confinement. And at times I got in trouble. But I tell people now that I'm against solitary confinement. Solitary confinement is very harmful. It's dangerous, right? And solitary confinement really doesn't make a prison safer.
Right? It doesn't rehabilitate somebody.
No. People need more programming to help them do these things. But I spent 10 years in actual solitary confinement.
10 years?
10 years.
Wow. How did prison experience shape your life?
Well, I think it's in stages, I can say. When I was younger, it made me very angry. It made me frustrated because I didn't know how to better myself. I didn't have the programs there to better myself. So I didn't know how to adjust to these things, right? I had never been in prison before. So how are you telling a 16-year-old, 17, 18-year-old how to adjust in these man-made, harmful, dehumanizing environments, right? So as I got older, I started to mature and find things to do, programming and learning how to program and learning how to really just find ways to build upon myself and better myself. So when I learned those things, I started to better myself, right? And become a different person. And I just would say prison is not for a child, right? You have adults there, right? When you bring children in these environments, and it's not healthy for a child. Right, so I'm still trying to better myself.
Your brain is still young, you're still growing.
Right.
You really can't process a lot of these things that are happening around you.
Right.
So when did you start writing this book? A Change is Possible, I Never Gave Up. It's your memoir. Just, you know, for our viewers, let's get it. Yeah. When did you start writing this book? What motivated you to write it?
I was writing, when I was in jail, I was writing really about my experience, never thinking about a book. Just what I'm going
like
through.
In a diary or journal?
Yes, I buy pads of paper from the commissary and I just use them as a journal, but didn't call it a journal. It was just me putting my thoughts on paper. That's why I should call it, put some thoughts on paper. And I'd done it for years.
And that was a way of survival too for you, to be able to write that and kind of process that on paper?
Yes, that was one of my processes of trying to be free. Outside of reading, in my spirituality, that was another way for me to be free in a sense. And I finished really like 10 pads and back and front, you know, yellow legal pads, back and front. And when I was in Colorado in the Supermax, COs came in there and did a shakedown, and they actually knocked water. I had a cup of water on my desk and they knocked it over.
And destroyed it?
Yeah, but I didn't know it was destroyed at the time. But the correctional officer actually came out, you know, took the handcuffs off me and said, Mr. Ellis, I knocked the water over by accident. I apologize. I got as much up as I could. But he didn't know that the water had ran off the side of the table where I had my legal work and my writing. And it was basically destroyed. So, but I had to start over when I came home to continue to write.
Wow. So you lost a whole stack of written material that you.
Yes.
Wow. So, what advice would you give to young people about some of the choices they tend to make in their formative years, in the teenage years?
I just say surround yourself with the right people. Speak to older people or people who you trust in to get help and support. But I also would say to the government, let's provide more resources for them, because we can say the choices that a young person is not making, but if the resources is not there to support these young people, what do you expect from these young people, right? Let's give the young people more opportunity for resources, more opportunity to work, more trade schools, more social emotional programs that they can get into that can help them, more boys clubs that have not only sports but educational opportunities in these settings.
And
mentors for these young people, right? So that's what I would tell them. Surround yourself with the right people. Give yourself an opportunity. You know what I'm saying? Dream big. Give yourself the opportunity to dream as big as you think you want to dream. You know?
What do you hope people take from your book?
I just hope people understand that change is possible. I never gave up. Don't make it just about prison. Make it about changing your life in general, right? You change your career. You change people around you. You change your diet. You change the way you saw people, right? You change all these things. Mine was just change is possible about me changing my life while being in prison. But it was more to me changing. You know, how did I see my spiritual life? How did I see life? How did I view myself as a growing man, right? How did I view myself in many ways now as a father, as a husband, right? So I had to change a whole lot about myself to become a better husband, to become a better father, right? To become a better person in the work that I do to support people that's been impacted by the system. So it's a lot of change that can take place. And just finding hope in yourself, right? Believing in yourself, right?
Allowing yourself to grow and evolve.
Yes.
Yeah. When you look back at your teenage years, what advice would you give yourself as a person in your 40s right now?
Trust in the people around you that you can talk to them. Because I didn't have the confidence that I can talk about the insecurities that I felt as a young person. I didn't know how to express those things. And because I didn't know how to express them, I found myself in situations that I shouldn't have been in, right? But if I don't know how to express myself, then what do I do, right? I'm sitting here as a young person with these insecurities and not knowing how to explain these things. And I remember talking to my mother one day about my father's death when I was a kid. And my mother cried talking about my father's death. So when I started surrounding myself with the wrong people, even though I wasn't doing wrong things, I didn't know how to tell my mom because I didn't want to disappoint my mother, nor my grandparents. You know, so it's a whole lot that comes with not just making a right choice or wrong choice, right? It's the confidence that that young person have in them to be able to express to someone that they look to and have an admiration for, how can I disappoint you? And say, this is what I'm feeling. And this is what who I've been hanging around. You know, so it's a whole lot that happens with young people instead of just making a wrong choice.
Absolutely. Now, one of the things that you campaign against is life without parole for children or for young people. What impact do you believe that life without parole sentences have on the lives of children and their potential for rehabilitation?
Right, and other extreme sentences as well. I tell people this. We have laws in place to protect children from signing contracts, from driving, from drinking, and all type of things to protect children because we understand their innocence. We understand the immaturity that a child has. So how then do I make a choice as a 16-year-old child and now you say that I'm an adult? But 24 hours before then, I'm a child with all these protection laws and clauses in place to protect me. But now when I make this horrible decision, you remove that, right? Children are children.
Remove the protections.
Right. I'm not saying that children should not be held accountable, but to what extent do we throw our children away and don't give them a chance to redeem themselves? And we know that through brain science, through science, that show that up until 25, your brain is still maturing, right? So we're removing all that to sentence children to extreme sentences like life without parole, other de facto sentences, right? Which is harmful, right? Give them a chance to show that they're not the same person. And I can tell you, I work with over 250 people who were former juvenile lifers and others who had extreme sentences, who are in the community doing awesome things, who are doing awesome work. They're not who they were when they was children, as young as 13, 12 years old. You know, that was sentenced to these extreme sentences.
And so what alternatives or reforms do you propose for the justice system to handle cases involving juvenile offenders more effectively?
It's a lot of alternatives out there. You have, restorative justice programs that's put in place that people have. You have data that shows that children are better growing and maturing when they're home than when they in these prison systems and prison settings. We don't even have enough restorative practice programs for children to get in, right? So that's what I recommend. If you choose to give a child time, let's not think about throwing their life away for the rest of their life, right? if we have to put them in a prison setting, can it be a setting where these young people can grow, right, and become productive members of society, right? Can that happen, right? Can we do that for these young people and not throw our children away? We're the only country who sentenced children to life without parole and these other extreme sentences like this, right? But it's shown through a lot of people being released, thousands of people that's been released that had de facto, but over 1,000 that had natural life without parole, who are doing awesome work in the community, and they take full responsibility for what they did. In no way I'm sitting here and not thinking about the victims or survivors in these situations. I'm a victim. My father was killed. I know what that feel like. I know what it feel like, right? And I've had the chance to sit among people who were survivors of juvenile crime, of crimes of children. And they'll tell you, we don't want all, survivors are not monolithic. All of them have feelings about what they feel. The ones we work with will tell you, I don't think children should be thrown away for the rest of their life. I think they should be given a chance to show you that they have changed. And they're not the same person they was when this situation took place, right? And that's the important thing, right? We have to put more out there for our young people to be able to get the programs, get the resources. We can't do this by zip code and area code, right? Or the way a person looks. We can't do that. We have to put the resources in the community and allow these children to grow and mature as they grow up in the streets. Not in the street, but in the community. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I say, give children a chance.
Eddie, before I let you go, talk to us about some of the programs you run in your community in relation to these criminal justice reform, programs or activities that, as a motivational speaker, as a writer, as a person who knows very well the criminal justice system.
Well, what I'm doing now, I'm outside of work, I'm lending myself in certain environments to give my lived experience to support community safety, to support young people that's not in trouble, also young people who have been in the system, but I also help support family members at times, to help them support their young person, young people that they're interested in their family or that they love and care for. But here's the thing. Me and my coworker, Crystal Carpenter, we run a support group here in D.C. for local, folks who were released under, the IRA, bill that was passed a few years back. And we have a meeting twice a month for 2 hours with folks who have spent half of their life or most of their life in prison. And in this group, we give them resources, we help them find the resources. 99% of them are working, they're giving back to the community. At my job, we have a national network of folks who have been impacted by the system as children, and we have national calls. We connect them with resources that we have, professional coaching programs that we have. So it's a lot of things we do to try to put them in position to be successful and to support their success. And that's the thing that's important to us, that we making sure that their success is supported. And through all that, what's very important to me is, again, being the best father that I can be, being the best husband that I can be, being the best friend that I can be. And we are supporters of keeping our community safe, right? We want to be a part of the process to support our community, to make sure our communities are safe, right? Bring us to the table. Let us use our experience to be a part of what's taking place, right?
To be part of the conversations that are
right. That's what's important to us, But again, I give myself to the community in ways to be supportive when I have time. Be a part of different legal aid boards and things like that, because for me, to be a part of the process is very important.
Why was that important for you that, you could have done anything else? You could have gone work, done jobs and forgotten all about this, but you decided to give yourself to this cause. What motivated you to do that?
Well, what motivated me to do it was that people thought that we were throwaway people. And I wanted to show people that we're not throwaway people. We're not a piece of trash. We're human beings who made bad choices when we were children, that we're taking full responsibility for and not make up any excuses for what we've done, right? And for me, I wanted to be a mustard seed of example, right, to the puzzle that is many of us doing the work, right? And I wanted to be one of those examples to say, you know what, we can give people a chance. And this year be my 18th year home And I've never been back in jail other than to do work in jail and to support programs or to visit someone. And there's others who are the same way, right? We can't ostracize all of us who've come home and expect people to be able to do what you want them to do or what they need to do for themselves. Give people opportunity to be a part of the community and society, right? Give us the opportunity to, I tell people, I just need you to open the door. I don't need you to walk for me. Right. And that's how we move in the community. We don't need you to walk for us. We just need you to open the door for us to give us an opportunity. And we're gonna show you why we deserve to be here.
We stop setting up roadblocks, I guess.
Right,
yeah.
Right.
Eddie Ellis, thank you so much for taking time. This is such a powerful book, powerful testimony. I hope, you know, many people read it. Thanks for the work that you do in the community. Appreciate you. Thanks for coming through and talking to us.
Thank you, I appreciate it. Thank you very much.